Again, everyone right now should have their template folder open. Your images folder should be empty. Your styles folder should have in it the normalized.css and the style.css. All right? And if you would, then please open up your index.html file. All right? You can see what I tried to do. I was going to originally I was going to print this off for you. Okay? And then I told Charles, I said, you know what, this is going to end up between this and all of the CSS. This will be like 15 pages. And I just thought it was a waste. That's why I put it on the flash drive. But if it looks a little funky as far as how it is formatted, that's the reason it looks like that. So when you look at it right now, and I'm right at the top, of course you want your doc type. Remember, that does not have to be the word doc type does not have to be in uppercase, but it can be. So you can just leave it. That's fine. All right. Then you've got your HTML tag. Then you've got your head tag. Then you've got your first meta tag. That meta tag, again, says that you are using the Unicode character set. Then you've got the title. I'd recommend all that text that's in there that says my website, just remove it. So there's nothing in there. All right, so it's just got the title. Then you've got your link tag. And actually in here, there's two of them. Now, when you are actually going out and developing your own sites, you will now have your choice. You can either use that normalized.css that the author used, or you can use a reset.css that I told you about earlier. You have now seen the difference between the two, okay? Not on here, but you saw it earlier when we went through that, okay? So I'd like you to keep those in there. That's everything for right now in your head section. So let's move down to the body section. In fact, let's even do it easier. Let's move down to the bottom and let's go down to the footer section. All right, we'll do that next because that's pretty simple to fix up too. Now, if you do want to set it up so that in your footer, if you do want to set it up so that you reproduce, so you again put the about and all that other stuff down there, you can leave that there. All right? If you don't want to do that, you can remove that from there. Now the div class equal container space clearfix, for right now you can leave it in because if you remove it, it makes it look real funky as far as what you have in there for your footer. But you'll notice that you've got the home, etc. Well, where it says href, and right now there's nothing in there, correct? All right, under the home, href put in equals index.html. For the about, about.html. For the services, services.html. And for the contact, contact.html. All right? Makes sense to everybody? Then I would recommend that you grab all four of those lines, those LI lines, copy all four of those LI lines to your clipboard. The ones you just changed. Then go up on the top and in your nav section, get rid of the three, replace the three that are there with the four that you just put in. Does all that make sense? So now you will have 4 links up on the top of your screen. If you try to run this, you will now have 4 links. Yours will say home, about, services, and contact. All right? You'll notice if you do bring yours up on the screen, it won't show the big computer because we cleared out that images folder, and it won't show those icons. And it won't show the cute little puppies. All right? So you won't have any of that stuff in there, but you'll have all the text. All right? Any questions? If you go down to the bottom, you'll notice you've got the copyright and the company name, and you've got the links again. Now, you don't have to do this, but if you would click any of those links other than the home link, you're going to get an error right now. Does that make sense to everyone? Because we do not have an we do not have an about.html, a services.html, and a contact.html. Since you don't have those, if I try to click one of these links, it's going to come up and give me that, well, not, you can't see it, but it's going to give me an error that says that the file could not be found. All right, but you have the baseline, so your header is now set up, your footer is now set up. If you have not done so, please go and open your index.html file. If you have not yet done so, please open it up. And again, as I mentioned, you should now not see the logo in the upper screen because we don't have that in there, okay? All right, I want to quickly check something. Okay, I'd like you, if you would please, open up another tab in your browser or another window depending on the browser you're using. Okay, and I'd like you to go out to logomaker.com. One word, logomaker.com. All right? I can see at least on a couple of yours that that's coming up. So let's suppose you don't have to do this. But let's suppose that any one of you, and just anybody, you decide you're going to start doing your own work, creating your own sites, etc. You can come out here and you can create your own logo here. So for instance, you know, my initials are JPS, and if I wanted to make a JPS Inc. and have it be in some really weird font or color or whatever, I could do that. I could make that my logo. Or, you know, whatever. I could put a picture in there and combine text, whatever. But now, if you want to create your own logo, you've got a place to put it. And you know that's one of the places that you can go out to create your own logo. All right? And don't want to make too big a thing of it, but it's the kind of thing, if you start, you know, there are sites out there. There are people out there between here and St. Louis that actually have their own websites. I'm going to see if I can find that one because I saw one yesterday, and I'll tell you the URL then. Thought it was Dave. Doggone it. Okay, this isn't the one, but it's one I quickly found. So if you would, open up yet another tab, or you can close the logo maker if you want to, or just use that one, and go out to, this is one word again, scottrobertswebdesign.com. Scott Roberts Web Design. Design.com. All right, this is just one. You know, it could be anyone. The point is, if you iterate your way up to the top of the site, what you'll notice is on the top, he's got a background area up there, and he's got his own logo. This is the kind of thing. This is a gentleman right now who, for lack of better words, has hung out his own shingle. All right, you hear about people who contract themselves out. Now, typically, when you're right out of school, you're going to have a harder time contracting yourself out, all right, because you haven't made a name for yourself yet. There's two ways to get around that. One way is, like I said, ideally, if you can get an internship, I can help get you one. You can get one yourself. You build a website for a parent, for a friend, for whomever. Then at least you that's one way. The other way, and it sounds crummy, but when you first start, is to really cut your prices and be willing to create things for people at a bare bones price. And again, whether you do that or whether you don't, that's up to you. But the reason I'm telling you this is I know people who are quite talented. I've had students in the past that they're talented enough that they would make very good web designers. But pardon my French, they're assholes as people. They just are. They don't get along well with other people. They'd be fine if you stuck them in a corner and said, do this all day long. They would be great, but they can't get along well with other people. The reason I'm telling you that is with some of those people, they had a hard time once they graduated getting a job. All right? Because they would go in there, and if somebody would say, you know, tell me a little bit about yourself, they'd start to get belligerent. And you know, if somebody would say something to them they didn't like, they wouldn't mind literally having a verbal altercation with them. So the reason I'm telling you that is, if that's the case with you, and I haven't seen that in any of you, or you've graduated and for whatever reason you can't get a job, you don't know what it is. You've interviewed but you can't get a job. Then you might want to start thinking about doing something like this. All right. All right. So let's jump back then to our index.html page. So you can start looking in here and thinking about all of the stuff that we don't need. So I'm going to go back to the index.html file. And you'll notice we've got that big area that's secondary content area. And now, before we do anything with it, let me try this first myself. All right. I don't think we need that area. So what I did was I went in my index.html file, and there's a div there that says div ID equals secondary dash CTA. It's right up above the footer. Everybody see that? And I highlighted everything from the beginning of that div until the end of the div. This is why one of the reasons too why the author puts comments in there like that. So it's very easy for you to see exactly what you're removing. So I'm going to highlight all that. I'm going to hit delete, so that's gone. If you do that and you save and run it again, what you'll notice now is down at the bottom, you've got just the footer, but there's nothing up above it. All right? So, and I'm just keep looking in here. So now I'm going back to the index page again. All right, and again, this is my recommendation to you, okay? Go back, I'm working my way up, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but now the thing that you've got there is that aside. Everybody see your aside? I would recommend that you keep the beginning aside tag and the ending aside tag and remove everything in between them. So you just got a beginning and an ending aside tag, save, and run it again. After you do that, it's going to look, for lack of better words, a little funky because you'll have this kind of dark bar over on the right. And the reason you've got that dark bar, and this should make sense to all of you, is there's CSS on that. We've added color, etc. to that. But we're just going to leave that there for right now, and it's not that you have to do that, but if you're asked to put it in aside, you now have an area set, no pun intended, aside for it. All right? Okay. Then when we look at the rest of the stuff in here, well, let's look at what's left. You've got PSD to HTML and CSS3, and you've got some text underneath it. Then you've got the area in there for the three different images, and you've got some text underneath there, etc., etc. So it's up to you. If you decide, well, I kind of like that 3-column format, then I'd leave everything in there that's in there. Because you can massage all that, and you can put in your own stuff. Okay? So let's say that one of you has got a picture that you want to put in. Okay? And if you look at that area, that's not a very big area that you have in there to put those pictures in. Okay, so I've shown you this site before, but I want you to go out there right now. And that is, I'd like you to go out, this is one word again, go out to makeathumbnail.com. All right? It's one of these sites that's very functional, yet very ugly to take a look at. Okay? So let's say that Ethan, and I'm not saying he does or doesn't, but let's say he's got an interest in trains. So he's going to put, on this page, he's got 3 pictures of trains that he'd like to put in that area right there. Well, then what you do when you take a look at what's there, and hopefully this makes sense, where it says make a thumbnail, see where it says choose file right there? If you click that button, you can choose whatever file you want to choose. You can do this now, but you don't have to do it. I'm just trying to show you what you have to do in order to do this, okay? Then look underneath it and notice you're given 3 sizes here. 100 by 100. If you click the down arrow, I think, is it 150 by, oh no, there's more than there used to be. 100 by 100, 150 by 150, all the way up to 300 by 300. So you can play around with that a little bit, but if you decide you want to create thumbnails, this is a fast way to do it. It's free, and when you do select an image and then you select make a thumbnail, it literally saves it out to the internet for you. Did you hear that? And it gives you a website address. So what you do is you highlight that website address, you open up another tab, you copy that website address to your address bar, hit enter, it'll show you the little image, then you save it to your images folder. Does all that make sense? You are being graded on professionalism here. So if you decide you're going to put in 3 small pictures or up to 300 by 300 pictures, they should look nice. They should be lined up next to each other. The content should be professional, etc. All right? And I can guarantee you that by this time next week, Evan will have looked at all 10 of yours. Not the Evan here. The Evan in St. Louis will have looked, well, maybe he will too. But Evan will have looked at all 10 of yours. And if there's things that he thinks I'm not showing you, he'll let me know. And vice versa. The other thing too is what we're going to end up doing, the way that you're going to get to this, we'll get into all this next week, but you're all going to have a special folder out there that will have your first initial and your last name. That's how you're going to basically get to everything. But what I'm going to ask him is, does he have any problems? Because he said his group isn't going to take this test probably, I think he said till next Wednesday, but I'm not, we're a few days ahead of where they are. I'm going to ask for a listing of all of his people because I want you to be able to not only see yours, but to see his. All right, so you get some ideas, etc. All right, not that you should be going out there stealing anybody else's stuff, but just so you get an idea of what's out there. All right, so again, the other stuff that is in there, the PSD and the cute little puppy and all the other stuff, that's up to you. You can leave dummy text in there, you can remove it, you can do whatever you want to do with it. All right? So again, if I decide that I'm going to go in there, the nice thing is it's got a 3-column format. So if you want to do something with working with columns, let's say that this isn't on the test, but let's say on the test it asks you for a 4-column format, something like that. All you have to do would be to go to one of those columns and copy it and add another one. And if they ask for a 2-column format, you go to one of those copies and delete it. So I would recommend keeping that in there. You don't have to do that, but I'd recommend that you keep that in there. All right? Again, it's totally your call. So let's jump up to the stuff that's at the top. Again, right now, you've got the bar along the top where you can put your own logo and or tagline, whatever you want in there if you want to. And you also have the links. And that's set up. Your nav bar is set up. And your nav bar is set up and it's also vertical. Okay? So when you look at the stuff that's underneath it, chances are pretty good, okay, where it's got really big title, you wouldn't want that, but you might want to leave it. All right? Do you notice something what he's done here? I was thinking about this before. Remember you may have heard me say this when the tape was playing? He created his class that was called BTN, and that's the same name as what you have in Bootstrap. Now, what I'm about to say, you may or may not agree, but if you look at your header right now, your heading area, that looks a lot like what we have in Bootstrap. You know, the way that it's set up. I don't know if you agree with that or not, and I think that's kind of the way he set this up. Maybe I'm wrong. So the rest of the stuff that's in there, what you do with that is up to you. If you want to remove the color, you know how to do it. If you want to remove the button or buttons that are in there, you can do it. All right? If you want to remove where the logo is, you can do that. But now you know how to add different things. You basically have got this all set up. All right? What I'd recommend that you do would be to go in and copy this page to about.html, services.html, and contact.html. All right? Then what after you do that, because then now you'll be able to link to all 4 of those pages. After you do that, the last thing I'd recommend that you do is to go to the title page and set the title for your index.html, the home page, set the title for your services.html to services, etc. Now, for the rest of the period, and there's not that much time left, I understand that, I don't even know what time it is, but for the rest of the period, and before this, you can start digging through the HTML file and the CSS file and figure out what you don't want. All right? I would recommend one thing. When you're working with that CSS file, don't remove a darn thing. Instead, comment out what you think you don't want, because chances are pretty good you're going to remove something you didn't want to remove. See what I'm saying? But now, and I don't have a problem with you starting like this, because now we're going to be more concerned with the content that goes in it. Believe me, there's still enough stuff that you're going to have to do. If you decide tomorrow that instead of a contact page, you're going to have some other page, whatever it happens to be. All right, and you won't have this, but let's just say you call the page hello.html. You won't have that, but that's all that came to mind. I will expect then that, not for services. So if you don't have a services page and you replace it with something like that, I'm going to expect that you fix that link, both on the bottom if you have it there and on the top. Does that make sense? This is supposed to be a full-fledged website that works, that looks professional. Things that you might want to do between now and tomorrow. It's up to you. You don't have to do this. Things you might want to do. Look online. And as an example, I'm going to just type this in because I can't think of a good one right now. But I'm going to type in HTML color codes. All right? And it comes up with a lot. There's an htmlcolorcodes.com. All right? And if you bring that up, htmlcolorcodes.com. Because I don't want your website, I don't want him to turn around and go, man, these look a lot like what you did in that project. He doesn't know I gave you that code. And probably if he did, he wouldn't be real thrilled. Okay? So I'm not going to tell him. All right? Of course, if he ever watches this tape, then he's going to hear me say that I'm not going to tell him. All right. But now you can go in, and there are plenty of sites out there. So if you've got, if you really like the site, the color purple, all right? But there's a lot of different derivations of it. You can look at that, and then you can find out what goes with it. I want him to look at these websites in a week, and I'm not kidding you, I want him to be frickin' blown away. That's what my hope is. He's gonna go, what the hell have you been teaching them? These people look like they really get it. That's because they really get it. And in some ways, at least, it's because this is the third time you're doing this test, whether you realize it or not. You did it again in Bootstrap, and now you're doing it again. So by now, you should have a pretty good idea of what's going on. You should also start thinking about things like font family. His Helvetica New, you probably don't want to use that. All right? So if you have time or the desire, you can even look online, and they have, there's suggested font families, etc., that you can use. All right, so I think already you've got a good start to this. Okay, and we will spend literally now about 5 minutes, because there's a front and the back on the test. The front basically says do this. You've already done that. The back says now do this, now do this, now do this. And I know one of the things that he put in there were things like, again, use those the HTML5 things. One thing that I did in mine, and I probably didn't tell you about this, but if you look on your index.html file, you know where he's got that div near the top and it says ID equal content? You know what I'm talking about? Normally today, what you're supposed to do in HTML5 land is you don't have that in a big div. Sometimes it's called a wrapper or whatever. That should be in a main tag, which is an HTML5 tag. So all you'd have to do would replace the word div with the word main, both in your beginning tag and in your ending tag. All right? And I'd recommend that you do that. Other than that, you've already, as far as, you're going to have to create, I think he asked in there for an aside. I think he asked in there for a section. And there might be one or more of any of those. He does ask you, I should say he, I ask you, whatever you want to say. But you're asked to do, you might want to go back in the book and take a look. I don't remember what chapter it is, but where they talked about relative positioning and absolute positioning, etc. I think that you're asked to put one thing in there that's absolutely positioning. You have your choice of what you put in there, but you're asked to use absolute positioning. There's something else in there that talks about relative positioning. And again, if you want to know what relative positioning is, okay, either using the example that we just looked at in here that you have the code for, or the one we built as a class, that Wild Wild West, go back to where you've got, because it's the same thing, where you've got those logos that pop, the Twitter and all that stuff that pops up and down. What you should notice is in the CSS for both of those, it says position relative, all right? Comment that line out and run it again. And then you can have a better understanding of what relative position is. All right? I think I put an article that I found online out there about positioning also. All right, that was a lot to throw at you in a short amount of time. Does what I'm saying make sense? You should all be really well on your way. All right? So when you're doing the test tomorrow, if there's stuff in the, you look, geez, I don't know if I need this CSS now. Comment it out first, then reload the page, okay? But like I said, I'd recommend that if nothing else, now you know, okay? Now take that folder, if it's in a place, if you're in a good place, so to speak, right now, and take that template folder and copy yours, make another folder, call it Amin, Valerie, Eric, etc. Do that before you leave. That's where you'll do all your work tomorrow. And the good news is, the reason I had you do it like that is twofold. One is, in case you screw up tomorrow, in case you just really screw up big time and you don't know what you did, you can always go and remove that whole Amin folder, for example, and copy that template one over again. So you've got a copy of it. The other thing is, I showed you that thing that I built that has the JavaScript and stuff in it. I said hopefully we can look at next week. That's where we're going to start from. All right, so you will all have that. We'll change the colors and stuff. I'm not concerned with that stuff. All right, questions? All right, so as soon as you come in, 8:05 clicks tomorrow, you've got the whole amount of time. If it doesn't take you that long, fine. Just stay in here and do other things. If everyone is done, let's say by 11, because we're already so far ahead, maybe that won't happen. But if everyone is done by 11, then what we'll do, and I'd rather do this as a class, is I'll show you how to do all that stuff. All right, I'll have some of the folders and stuff created out there on Rankin's website for you. But if we can do that, because he made that worth 15 points on the test out of 100. So I just bring them up and have them, I spend 5 minutes with each one of them and I show them what to do. And I thought, well, why should I do that when I can show them all at one time while I'm doing it and have them follow along And even if it takes 20 minutes, that's 20 minutes as opposed to bringing 5, he's got double the people I've got, so it takes him an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes to do that. I don't want to do that. All right. Make sense? All right. So you know what we're doing tomorrow. Monday again, we'll watch the rest of the CSS. If there's time, we'll watch the rest of it, which is about a half an hour more. Then Tuesday and probably Wednesday of next week, we'll build this thing that I just showed you before. We'll build that as a class. You won't have to turn it in, but it's to get you even, that you can go nuts. Any font you want, any color you want. If you don't like the image I'm going to give you, put your own image out there, etc. All right? That's all that I got.